Debate live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Click OK, Refracted Curvature, and a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server. So, welcome one and all.
Good afternoon. Hey, what's up?
Sky?
Hey. Well, I'll tell you what. I hate to refer to a pre-show as the first thing I do on a live show, but it's probably a good thing that we were in the wrong server for the pre-show, because the amount of swearing that took place in that pre-show would have carried over to this live show.
Yes. So for my worst demons and traits come out when I'm on the edge of exhaustion, and I've spent a good month now being ill with toothache. I'm finally at the other end of it and did actually get a little bit of sleep last night, as much as I was woken up by my kids in the morning, much to my irritation. However, my frustration and tolerance level is really, really, really low, which is to say that when somebody asks me about how I feel about Earth looking flat, but what about the pictures from space, and I start explaining how the second law of thermodynamics would debunk that notion of gas without containment, and I'm told that I'm a liar because I've detailed the second law. This is after me asking somebody, okay, you say it's not true, and it's gravity. So what's the law of nature or anything similar that describes gas without containment in the way of containment by gravity? I don't know how you'd even phrase it. But there was just a stony silence, followed by me being called a liar for detailing second law of thermodynamics and entropic dispersion of gas into spaces, debunking the place that these pictures could come from. Now, at every opportunity while I'm explaining this, my opponent's just talking straight through the middle of the demolition of his argument. At every single opportunity. And calling me a liar. And appealing to things that you can't justify. Begging the question of, well, of course I can show gas pressure without a container. Look at the sky. Absolutely pathetic. But in every instance, I'm overcoming the argument with him chanting through the top of me. After about 10 or 15 minutes of us not getting to the point where he concedes, no, you can't take pictures from a place that can't exist because we'd all be dead. Gas would have filled it. That's never getting addressed, ever. The original point that's being asked. Off the back of, yeah, okay, it looks flat. Like, so what? But it doesn't look flat from a place that isn't real. Then we get into, well, you can't have gas pressure gradients without having non-containment. A prerequisite for gas pressure gradients is that it isn't contained. You're like, what an utter load of crap in the face of me being called a liar. So after taking apart, with great effort, obviously, because you're being talked through continually, every single point of the argument that's been put to me, and being called a liar, and having baseless assertions and fallacies put to me in response, I then get into being called a child. So you're like, at this point, I'm just going to give my performance, very sweary, performance assessment of this guy. And I'm sure you can imagine what that means if you're a long-standing member of the show. And then being told that I'm just personal attacks and ad homs. No, no, no. It's a performance assessment based on your stupid nonsense that you've spewed. And the only way you've perceived to get a win is by chanting through it so nobody around you can hear it in the Discord server. Coincidentally, the politics Discord server, which I joined by mistake thinking it's Friday. So there you go, check that out. I know there's quite a few members picked up free memberships in the last couple of days, so if you happen to be a free member, or you're just a member of Nathan Oakley 1980, check out today's pre-show. Obviously, the strong language. Well, we can just have a chit-chat now. I'd normally line up a video, but thinking I was going into politics, I was like, I don't have to line nothing up. We can just chit-chat.
Well, we actually did have a video lined up. It was one that Brian was wanting to review.
Oh, did we? Is it in Master B? Brian, as in our Brian.
I've slept. Yeah, it was I've slept since then. I'll go see if I can find it if you give me a minute.
Yeah, the last one I got from Brian is this is the video you guys were talking about, Chris Nodell. Is that the one? Either way, yeah. If you have a quick goosey, you can tell me which one it is. Anyway, we haven't really said hello to, although this is a weird thing to be doing right at the beginning of the live show, we've only just joined our own server. Typically, we're in here for a good 20 at least minutes before the live show starts, but I didn't really get to say hello to you all, so hello everyone in Discord. I know we've only just frequented this particular server today.
Hello, good morning.
Hey, Righteous.
Hey.
Hey there.
I was going to say that's about all the chit-chat for me at the moment.
Well, I'm glad we got to engage in it. How delightful for us. It does look like we have actually got a video to cover by the sounds of things. I thought we'd just be engaging in idle chit-chat for the remainder of this particular live show. I wonder how our critique of Nathan Thompson and Angel of Light went down, because we haven't heard Angel pop his head in since, and Nathan Thompson does occasionally frequent this server, does he not?
Not really. I've seen him a few times on the QE show, but when you would have seen him too then, right? But I haven't seen him for a while now on the QB show either.
Okay. Well, I would be interested.
I don't believe they will.
Go on, John.
I don't believe that Nathan Thomas will receive it well.
Thompson.
It was harsh. Thompson. Okay, yeah, Nathan Thompson will receive it well. It was kind of harsh.
Yeah, I was thinking about it afterwards, and I did actually watch it again, that particular live show. And on balance, there's no reason why Angel of Light shouldn't have caught it in the neck just as bad as Nathan Thompson did. But I kind of gave him a bit of a pass, going, well, he's relatively new to this stuff, so he gets a bit more of a pass because he's green. But if you've been tuning in, if you're an audience member and you've been tuning in recently to QE and Ballbusters in general, the team that is, taking apart Witsit's stuff, we're going through that forensically, like with a fine-tooth comb, analysing every single word that's been said. And the level of critique is high, and therefore it's more reasonable or seems more justifiable to critique everybody that speaks at the same standard. Now, that isn't typically how we do things. It's only in the case of Witsit specifically, because of how egregious it's become with the ether nonsense recently. And I have to take some responsibility for that, because when it was capable potentially of being nipped in the bud, I was like, it doesn't matter. It's a sideline subject that won't affect flat Earth. It's not even got anything to do with it. Well, now it's become a massive poison. So things like the forensic analysis of their crazy garbage claims has to be done. But it does mean, my point, that we will have our own side critiqued just as heavily. When it comes to things like Nathan Thompson and Angels, I will lower the standards to a slight degree and say, well, in this case, Angels is a bit more green. He's a bit tempestuous. He doesn't necessarily listen when he should all the time, but he's younger than we are. So there's a few passes you get where Nathan Thompson just gets it in the neck. It's like, you've been here long enough. I'm not going to make any excuses for you. Sorry, Nathan, if you're listening. But he's been here forever, right? Maybe he's been subject to the same poison from people like Jaron, Bob Nodell, Dave, whoever else is poisoning the well against us. And people like Nathan Thompson who are on the fringes of that poison still get affected by it. And they go, well, yeah, I don't necessarily need to go into flat Earth debate and listen to what they've got to say.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. The people just have an assumption about how this show is and haven't checked in for a while. So they're not up to date with the FE debate.
Plus, the way that the cogs turn is quite slow here, because it's a constant push, right? A constant slow push, inch by inch. Now, don't get me wrong. Occasionally, we'll push that block off a big step when we get things like pitch data, but it is quite a slow turning wheel. Also, nothing changes. Something I'm going to be leaning into more next year, 2025. It's no big deal. It's not that serious. Nothing's going to change. You're right. You will still have to go to work tomorrow. It was always measured flat. The 2024 pitch data are included, obviously, but you know, the year that we're telling people Earth's measured flat, all of the objections have been dealt with. Now we're at the point where we can soften that and say it was always measured flat. It always will be, but that means that nothing's going to change. There is no concern. We don't suddenly have to start remapping the world. As soon as I said that, I thought, yeah, we do. It's all globe projections. I'd like to know how modern charts work. In other words, when they're actually using them and not using a Mercator or, you know, something like that. If they've just got the military charts that they get fed in very small areas, you would imagine that they're basically perfect, or you would hope they were, right?
Well, what are we talking about? Over what kind of scale?
I don't know what they get given. If you just got a general chart, if you were on some warship and you're going to find your way from A to B, they'd just give you the charts for that, right? I just don't know what the scale of the charts would be. I'm not a mariner.
Like a surveying map would be perfectly, you know, because they measure distances between the points, right?
Yeah,
In other ways.
I would definitely go with that OS. Any OS map is just accurate, right?
Yeah, so the thing is, like when you start using the celestials, there's that part of it that remains unknown. So I don't know how accurate a world map you could create from that.
Or could you just patch together a load of OS maps?
That would be interesting, but how are you going to do a survey on an ocean with no landmarks?
Right. You'd have to make them. You'd have to put the landmarks in. You'd have to drop buoys and things, but in some places that simply isn't practical. You know, people haven't got 3-mile chains.
Right. Well, the buoys themselves would shift on like tides. You know, so it would have. It would be really, really difficult. I don't see a practical way of doing it. Well, there is one way, and me and Arwen talked about it a long time ago, and that was to use sonar and get a sonar map of the entire ocean floor.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and then connect that up with the coastlines that you've got with OS maps. Bob's your uncle, right? Not that it has necessarily any practical application beyond knowing what the extremities are. And all we get is feast and nonsense garbage in regards to what we are chosen to speculate about the extremities. But that's what you'd want.
Well, it would.
Go on.
It would be practically applicable, because then if there is more area to explore, you would know where that area to explore is. As of right now, we don't even know that.
Right. So did you find the video that Brian wanted to cover?
Oh yeah. I posted it and then I had to step away. I got a phone call, so
Oh, okay, I've got it.
yeah, it's in.
Oh, it is the one I thought it was. Okay, so it's Brian's logic talking to Hammer. 3 hours long.
Yeah.
Mickelson Morley. You said
Yeah, well,
that's
how come he
what
needs to throw in caveats then? If he's going to, why can Austin throw in caveats, and when he's asked to support these things, he doesn't do it? How is that okay?
Okay, look, I said I'm not going to go grab a video in a
So
live
it's
debate, okay?
discussion. You have
So
to
we can
admit,
move
it's
on. We can
discussion.
move on. We can move on.
If
There's a
you-
lot of people who say that
it's
Mickelson,
discussion. Why should I move on from that?
this is all you got.
No, this is, I'm not putting up with nonsense.
You could never
Can he?
really
Can
do a
he?
debate.
Can we just?
Can
Can he just label it as an opinion for now? We just move on.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Austin's opinion. That's fine.
Is that fair?
Yeah,
That's fine. I'm fine with opinions.
Okay, thank you.
cool. So a lot of
Solve the
people call
problem.
Mickelson Morley.
One more time.
That's a problem. We're talking about what exists, and you want to label it an opinion and move on? Oh, no. This entire, the way that they're handling it is wrong. Brian has been done dirty by that statement.
I did think that while it was occurring, Brian's complaint about this, because I don't think I've seen this actually, was that Hammer, as a moderator, wasn't necessarily even-handed in his moderation. That is to say, he sided with Witsit. Now, I reserve judgment, having not seen the video. I mean, I may have seen it, but I certainly can't remember it.
A parlor trick, and they say that it doesn't have a naturally occurring phenomena, so it's useless and it means nothing. And
That's not a correct summary. We say the Mickelson interferometry does have uses. Right, let's get that out of the way. So that's wrong. We wouldn't say that. Right. Is it science? No. Why? It doesn't have a naturally occurring phenomena. That means it's not science.
Well, I've heard you say it's useless to him before, but it's not useless. It's useless to his claim that he's making. And
Exactly.
He's making that, trying to wiggle that in.
there's no reason for to talk about it because over here we only talk about science and we only talk about natural.
What we are.
Okay.
You're back at it again. Why can't you just talk about Mickelson more?
I'm trying to. I'm trying to.
Caveats. See, this is what you do.
So what's going on is he's been asked to talk about his experiment that isn't science and is incorrectly labelled as an experiment. I mean, the result of this, the upshot of this, was they relabelled it MMX, Mickelson-Morley experiment. So Brian's got a perfectly reasonable gripe, right? And what does he get from Witsit? You guys over there say we can't do anything, it's useless because it's not science and doesn't have a... Why are we being told what we say as a group to Brian, the individual, when he's being asked what it does? Just tell us what it does.
You're doing your best adding caveats. I know you're in game, right? And hopefully it will come out here tonight. But all you
have to probably stop interrupting.
But you're just adding in caveats. Instead of talking about the thing you're supposed to be talking about, you're trying to say people say this and people do that. What has any of that got to do with your claims?
You probably have to let me make my point first, wouldn't you, to know what it has to do with stuff?
When you're not talking about the thing you're supposed to be talking about.
Are there people in here that actually like amp this type of behavior? That's what's so great. Like, can I just finish my point and then I'll give you plenty of time to respond to it?
Not adding caveats and just make the point. Just talk about the thing you're supposed to be talking about.
I'm trying to.
I would be quiet if you just do that.
Okay. So a lot of people say that Mickelson-Morley is just a parlor trick. Okay. And they say that that's not science and therefore it's not.
You already said all this. This was exactly what Brian just objected to, wasn't it? Just gonna do it again.
Valuable. We don't need it or whatever. I disagree because they're highly precise, repeatable measurements that have been done millions of
measurements. Yeah, so it's not an experiment then. It's fraud if you call it an experiment and infer that it's scientifically validated. Yeah, it's useful for measuring stuff. Yeah, you can measure stuff with it. Yeah. Okay, so measuring stuff, maths, that abstract language isn't dealing in a category that you want to associate with this MMX. That's Mickelson-Morley experiment. It isn't an experiment. That's the objection. You've even detailed it vaguely, but made the conclusion that it's useless. On behalf of Brian, I totally understand Brian's objections.
times, and it's using interferometry, which is incredibly precise, and it shows that the light moves faster in the direction the sky moves, and it gets even faster when you get closer to the sky, and it changes with the seasons throughout the year.
Let's just take all that as read. Okay, I accept all of it. Absolutely bugger all to do with ether then. Even if I accept every word he just said, right?
This actually refutes the globe model. The light cannot be doing that according to the globe model. So it's a very important measurement.
Who cares? We are beyond that. We don't need to invalidate the globe model. The globe model is made with flat Earth measurements. So what, saying that the interferometry of spinning lights in the Michelson-Morley non-experiment is going to invalidate the globe? Who cares? This roundabout crap to debunk the globe in a way that nobody could ever possibly understand unless they're you, Witsit.
That refutes the globe. So before we get into why the light does that, or let's speculate about the ether.
You mean before you get on to bullshitting about how the light does that and bullshitting about the ether?
Can we agree that it's ignorant to ignore objective measurements that refute the globe?
Well, first of all, we'd have to, what I'd say about that is the measurements you're talking about, we'd have to investigate what the measurement is and what is being measured, right? That's number one. Number two is there is no evidence that it refutes anything until we know what is being measured and what is happening and whether or not it's something that's tangible that we can actually use, because you don't know if it's just an effect within interferometry, which it likely is.
Oh, so you just said that we would need to.
Is it?
We would need
interferometry.
So you agree that you would need to investigate it first, but
Yeah, like I'd need to investigate tape measures. No. You can investigate these things if they are linked to a phenomena that you want to know the cause of, and you're going to ascribe it experimental status, which is exactly what's being done here, fraudulently.
but that you haven't done that, but that you don't know what the measurements are, but that you know it's probably just an effect with interferometry. Is that a good summary?
Now he's introducing the idea that there's an effect. No. You spin a dolly and claim that that's an effect. No, you're inducing the effect. It's man-made. It's synthetic. But he's trying to weasel it in like it's a phenomena. Yeah, you need this to be science. Don't you? A bullshitter.
But it's not my claim. It's your claim, and I'm looking for you to tell me tonight all about the measurements. What's been measured, what the measurements are.
Okay.
So do you agree the measurements are hits on a plate over time? Quantity.
It's not over time. It's about how quickly the light gets to the...
It's not over time. It's how quickly. How do we determine how quickly something happens, John? Would it be a rate with respect to time?
Yes, it would.
He's a double-speaking clown, isn't he? In the same breath. This guy's just a clown.
But that's your baseline. Time is your baseline.
Yeah, exactly, Brian. Exactly. It's got nothing to do with time. It's just how quickly it happens. You stupid boy.
This is what happens when you lie.
You end up sounding like a complete deranged idiot, contradicting yourself in one breath.
Exactly.
Quickly it gets to the plate. So it's related to time. It's...
Oh my God. I'm going to give that a J, and we're going to listen to the full statement. Oh, my mouse doesn't... My computer needs repairing. My keyboard... Hold on a second. My J doesn't work. Need to Bluetooth pair again. Right, does my J work? Yes, it does.
Over time, it's about how quickly the light...
So
Okay.
do you agree the measurements are hits on a plate over time? Quantity.
It's not over time. It's about how quickly the light gets to the...
But that's your baseline. Time is your baseline.
It's about how quickly it gets to the plate. So it's related to time. It's not about what they do over time.
It's related to time. It's not related to time. I mean, the guy needs stringing up. What an outrage.
For real. Like,
Quickly is directly related to
he's really manipulating. Like, I don't. It's just very manipulative what he's doing, because he's gonna tell Brian it's not that, but then he's gonna say it is that in other words. That's like slimy as hell.
Not about food and how we consume it and eat it. It's about the cooking process of food for consumption. Not about
Right.
eating it.
the word
It's
quickly
about the
directly
fact that-
refers to time.
Say again?
The word quickly directly refers to time. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're just affirming what we've all just said. It's just a double speaker, isn't he?
One light beam gets to the receiver faster than the other light beam.
What, faster in time that it's nothing to do with double speaking clown?
And the light beam that gets there the fastest is always in a specific direction, and it changes and increases with altitude, and it changes throughout the year. How can that just be interferometry error?
Well, if it's an error, have you validated that it isn't an error? Meanwhile, this is a man-made induced effect in a device that you're raising up and lowering at altitude. Okay, so it's very synthetic then. Synthetic effect induced in a synthetic device that's being adjusted with respect to altitude by men. So Brian, in his original objection, where's the phenomena being studied? What's being measured? All right, well, we're measuring us inducing these effects and saying, can you just say that the effects we've induced are just down to error? Maybe. Who gives a shit? We're not observing this in phenomena that we can actually put through the reasoning of cause and effect based on science. That's the whole point. You're saying your man-made measurements are inaccurate. Okay, I'll take that as read then. So you're saying they're inaccurate when you raise them up and down? Okay. So which one do you want it? Do you want that they're super accurate or that they're not trustworthy because they deviate? Which one do you want? I don't care either way. Nothing to do with ether in your man-made measuring device that's apparently got a problem when you move it around up and down. You're like, who cares? Am I missing something?
So are you saying that it's not that the measurement, because a measurement needs a baseline? You understand that? You understand measurement needs a baseline. Are you saying that the measurement you're talking about, that you're claiming as a measurement, the baseline of that measurement is not time?
We are using time, yeah.
So
when you say it isn't anything to do with time, you're just a wanker.
it's
Right.
on a plate over time.
Go on.
No, I was gonna say right, because the reason that this whole 60-second segue, minute segue, well, the same thing, 2-minute segue, however long it was for Brian to get back around to what he was originally trying to say in the first place, like, it's just a bullshit. Is he wastes so much time when actually what you were supposed to say to Brian was yes.
He's supposed to be detailing what's being measured in Michelson-Morley and how it proves ether. That's what Brian wants from him. That's all we ever want from Witsit. Just prove your ether. That's all it ever comes down to, doesn't it?
Point.
It's not about what it does over time. It's about how.
After that little back and forth, he reasserts the doublespeak. Unbelievable. Why does nobody else hear this when he's talking?
How much time it takes to get there, period.
It's not about time, it's about how much time it takes to get there, period. What a wanker. What an absolute wanker.
Not about what it does over time.
It's on a plate.
So
over
whatever
time.
pedantic, sure.
Yeah. So
Are you going to address the measurement?
I'm going to guess, I didn't actually count while it was going on, but I think that was 4 times he double spoke back and forth about it being about time specifically in detailing it, how quick it is, and it's very specific non-association with time. I think it was 4 times. Should we listen to all of that again, all the way through? Count them in your head. It's about 30 seconds, right? Let's just hear all of this.
Altitude, and it changes throughout the year. How can that just be interferometry? It's not over time. It's about how quickly the light gets to the.
But that's your baseline. Time is your baseline.
It's about how quickly it gets to the plate. So it's related to time. It's not about what they do over time. It's about the fact that one light beam gets to the receiver faster than the other light beam. And the light beam that gets there the fastest is always in a specific direction. And it changes and increases with altitude, and it changes throughout the year. How can that just be interferometry error?
So are you saying that it's not that the measurement, because a measurement needs a baseline? You understand that? You understand measurement needs a baseline. Are you saying that the measurement you're talking about, that you're claiming as a measurement, the baseline of that measurement is not time?
We are using time, yeah.
So it hits on a plate over time.
It's not about what it does over time. It's about how much time it takes to get there, period. Not about what it does over time.
It's on a plate.
So whatever, pedantic, sure.
Yeah, so...
Are you going to address the measurement?
So,
Oh, 7 times. That's how many I counted. How many do you count?
Well, hold on. Before we do,
I was. Yeah, go ahead. You got that first.
Witsit was he just said, aren't you going to address the measurement? That's all that Brian has been talking about. What is he on about?
Yeah, can't you just address the measurement? Brian's asked him for his measurement and what it proves. So the response after this double speak string of 7 contradictions is going to be to ask Brian about the measurement that he's not detailed and how it proves something. What a bleeding outrage.
What
And
measurement?
also, the biggest thing here, first of all, like, you asked him again about his argument, and when you brought up the word traveling or whatever it was, he said the light doesn't travel. Well, how does it travel? How does it not travel if one light is getting somewhere faster than another? I really don't understand that.
It's nonsense. It's almost like he's had a cursory glance at the delayed choice and not fully understood what's going on.
I'm trying to ascertain what this thing is.
The light beam gets to the receiver faster in a specific direction.
I'm trying to get more.
That's 8. So 8 times he's contradicted himself in 2 statements.
Detail.
That was my point. It's 2023, and you guys don't even know what Michelson-Morley is.
Over a
Crazy.
minute. How many hits?
Why is he telling Brian that he doesn't understand what he's being asked to detail? He's had a question proof about how it could not be an induced error. That's what Brian's got. That's the substantiation thus far. A question proof.
Just a slimy poisoning the well tactic. The slimy poisoning the well tactic that he likes to throw in there sometimes, and instead of addressing his double speak, he tries to reverse and make other people look bad. Very clever.
It's not about what it does over a minute. You're like confusing it with a double slit experiment or something. Like we're
Called it. Yeah, it's convoluting in. It's not the double slit either. It's the delayed choice quantum eraser that he's getting these ideas from, and misapprehensions about time and not travelling and sheesh. And now he's projecting that onto Brian.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about.
You're the one that's supposed to be talking. You've only been asked how Michelson-Morley proves your claim and by way of what's it measuring. And you're telling him what we're not talking about. He's not a part of this conversation. It's your claim.
Michelson-Morley.
Interferometry, right, uses the two-way speed light calculation. That's based on how much over time.
Okay, yes. So
yeah,
it is.
That's 9 times. He's contradicted himself 9 times.
Bro, do you understand?
He's smirking. He knows. He's talking out his ass, doesn't he? He's smirking.
No, he thinks he's right, and he thinks he's looking at Brian like Brian totally doesn't understand. And we're chaotic, and we got caught up with the atomism, and what we think is the scientific method is really garbage. So he's looking at Brian like Brian is religious or something.
You can infer that from what's in his eyeballs, right? But I can go on what he just said, and he quite literally just contradicted himself 9 times and is now smirking about it.
He has the same look as if a 4-year-old has cast a fishing rod into the ocean and a shark bit down on it, but the shark hasn't ran away with it yet. He's got that kind of look in his eye. It's kind of a Dunning-Kruger, because he doesn't know something. He thinks he's going to get him a little fish,
I suspect there's some Duper's Delight in there too. Like Nathan was saying, he knows he's lying, I think.
I mean, he can't not know that he's contradicting himself 9 times in the last, minute and a half?
That what happens is they shoot light beams perpendicular to each other. Then they come and reflect and recombine in the center, and then they get redirected back to a receiver. Okay, the light beams don't get to the receiver at the same time, and the one that gets there first is always the light beam that was shot in a specific direction. So if I turn the orientation,
oh my God,
90 degrees, that light beam doesn't get there first anymore. So it can't just be the instrument's error. It's relative to a specific direction every time. It's been done millions of times.
Do you agree that interferometry splits the laser?
Reading between the lines on his behalf, he's not saying that. He's just detailing what happens in this man-made device. That's all he's doing. Okay? So you've induced this phenomena. It's synthetic. Now you want Brian to understand that there's got to be an explanation for it, I assume, because he's not said that. But he certainly hasn't connected it to ether in any way, shape, or form. I mean, that's just done by pure fiat. At some point, it'll conclude, well, you've got to have ether then. None of it's connected.
Laser or whatever has lasers going in 2 different directions, but one travels further than the other.
No, they don't travel further than the other.
That's the bit. Honeywell, if you read up on Honeywell, what they say about their ring laser gyros is that one, right? They claim, this is what they claim, is that one laser travels further than the other, creating an interference pattern.
Hey, bro, we're not talking about ring laser gyros. We're talking about the Michelson.
Interferometry. That is interferometry. Interferometry.
It's a different setup. It's a totally different setup.
Either. Well, it's not. It's still interferometry, Austin.
Okay.
Or it's not.
Okay, so a turkey sandwich and a ham sandwich are still the same thing because they both have bread. They're different setups.
Turkey
They're
in
different
a sandwich
setups.
or turkey on a plate is still turkey. Your claim is interferometry, right?
You just have the red herring to ring laser gyros.
It's not a red herring, Austin. Your claim is interferometry.
Really, what's the difference in the Michelson-Morley and a ring laser?
We go, question proof time. Brian's absolutely correct. You're claiming interferometry. But what, so you can hand wave away from Brian's clearly better knowledge of this subject? He's detailing what the manufacturer of a device that utilizes the principle of interferometry say about the process and how it's principally applied. But what, it's suddenly a turkey sandwich rather than a chicken sandwich? It's interferometry. What an outrage.
Laser gyro, do you know?
You tell me.
So why are you pretending it's the same thing when you admit?
He didn't pretend anything. You cut him off while he's in the middle of detailing his knowledge of the subject based on Honeywell and what they say about how they're practically applying interferometry. Now you've flipped the table, so he's gone, okay, right, fair enough. You say it's a ham sandwich, you tell me then. And this is what he gets in response. He's completely disingenuous, isn't he?
Admittedly don't even know.
Interferometry, both are using interferometry.
but it's doing different things with the interferometry, and you don't even know what it does, but you know that it's somehow.
It's just pure projection, isn't it? Brian's clearly got an understanding of this subject. You didn't allow him to give it, and now, admonishing his understanding without having heard it yet? You wouldn't even let him give him a sample. You told him it was a chicken sandwich.
Useless or something.
Did I say any of those things?
No, he didn't. He just projected all the fear and anxiety he's got about your exemplary knowledge on this subject based on Honeywell, a manufacturer that utilises interferometry in their devices, Brian. So he made some shit up that he didn't say in lieu of that.
Yeah, you said that it doesn't matter. It's probably just a mistake with.
What are you going to put those in quotes? What didn't matter? As you stutter your way through some made-up claim that Brian didn't have put in quotes around it? I didn't hear him say that.
Interferometers, and that it's traveling a.
Didn't hear him say interferometers either. He didn't use that word. This was preceded by us being told that this is a summary of what Brian's told us. Liar. You just misrepresent your opponent, why not?
Right, but even if the diffraction pattern over it changes with altitude, over seasons, even if we concede that, which I don't know if it does, what does that have to do with ether?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's a complete non sequitur.
This is the beginning of a long roadmap for him to try to get to ether. He has to make his reverse the burden of proof onto Brian so that Brian can think of ether himself, but it's not going to work. And, I didn't know Brian was such a Chad.
Chad? What do you mean? What's Chad?
Oh, he's huge. Like, he's a big old dude. Like, handsome. Like, he's a handsome guy.
Yeah, Brian's proper Adonis, man. He's a handsome fella. He's tall too. Built like a brick shithouse.
So like the gentleman just said, really, if you think about it, because we have had conversations with Witsit and he brings up Mickelson Morley, his whole point is to legitimize that light traveling in a specific direction versus another direction is the effect of ether.
Why Brian's so laid
Now-
back? He doesn't have any of the, your general beta cuck problems. He's not going to be struggling to find a chick. So he doesn't stress about it. So he can take all this in his stride.
Eli, that sentence that you just said, Witsit says, makes absolutely no sense.
Wasn't listening. I just wanted to pick up Brian
what
for
else
being a
is it?
giga chat. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't remember if he said it or he didn't, but his question would be, what do you think is causing that? Because that's the point, to induce an effect unnaturally, to ask the question, why is it doing that?
Right, but even if you do that, I don't know. Who cares? I don't know. It's not what you're saying it is, though. You know what I mean?
Who cares? And he says, see, you guys are so immature because it's not, then he starts going into all of that.
Why is this machine doing this thing?
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, why is this machine doing this thing that you didn't build that's acting this way? Like, I don't know.
How's it
But it's
supposed to behave?
irrelevant what I think causes it. It's irrelevant.
Exactly. He was talking about.
If you have a
Go on, John.
If you have a claim for a cause, that's on you. I don't have to think anything. You know what I mean? Like, why am I even being asked?
Yeah, I think you're right. He's got to question his proof his way to it so that a claim's being made by Brian that he can latch on to and say, well, there's got to be an explanation for that. Therefore, ether.
Greater distance.
I said you'd have to ascertain whether what's happening is just an effect that's happening within interferometry and not something that's actually happening.
Why would it just be an effect with an interferometry that is?
Because it's a synthetic measurement as opposed to a naturally occurring phenomena. So if you're going to cause and effect it, it has to occur in nature for us to give two shites about it. Because if you say, well, why is this happening in this man-made device? Who cares? It's a synthetic effect that you're studying. Ultimately, the only reason any of this is happening is because a man's put it into effect. So it's synthetic. So it's never going to be within the purview of cause and effect reasoning to offer it some sort of validity, empiricism, to therefore be attached to ether after the fact. But it isn't. Interferometry is never going to be put through this method of science that you want to attribute causal influence for ether. Or because of ether. I mean, it doesn't matter which way around you're going to do it, one way or the other, and you want people to believe that you've got empirical evidence for it. So somehow you've got to conjure the idea that this man-made synthetic effect needs explanation. It doesn't. Like John just said, who cares?
Specific to direction.
All right. But I don't know. This is what I'm trying.
Specific to the direction that people moved it in or designed it to spin in or orientated it in. All synthetic. What's the cause of that? A man did it. No. Why did it happen within the device? Yeah, man did it. Man made it happen that way. But for the fact that a man made it, it wouldn't be happening, would it? So who gives a shit? What's that? You wanted to link this to ether and ascribe a causal influence? Oh, right. Oh, I couldn't care less. This is stupid. You're in a category error. Yeah, the conceptual idea of describing things with language, that's maths. Science explains the cause of phenomena that we observe in nature. If we know that a man made it, we already know the cause of it. Why it's got an error, why it does something you don't expect after a man made it, and a man still made it. It's still synthetic. That's why it's outside the purview of science. That was the opener, right? It's not science.
Trying to find out what is your claim, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to separate yourself from ring laser gyros, which are also interferometry. So if something is happening within the Michelson-Morley, right, in a demonstration, then the same effects must be observed in ring laser gyros.
It's a different setup. So in Michelson-Morley,
Beautifully done, Brian. If you're saying this is an effect that we need to study within the conceptual devices that are offered to us for the performance and function of interferometry, then we'll need to study interferometry. And if we've got interferometry being used in ring laser gyros, as opposed to this Michelson-Morley experiment, which it isn't, then we need these two things to be parallel, consistent. If it does it in one and not the other, then that's a problem for you, not me, because it's not a synthetic phenomena that we need to reason about the cause. Yeah, Brian, well done. Brian's all over this.
they had the stones floating on Mercury with a rotating table with a perpendicular setup of light beams. Okay.
Mhm.
They intersected and oh yes. Oh yes, that's what Michelson-Morley is. This is the problem I was saying earlier. You guys don't even know what the test is. How are you going to tell us we can't talk about it? The light
one
gets
told you
to the
to-
receiver.
Someone tell you to talk about it. No one said.
A test? Did he say test? What, like scientific test? As in an experiment? Yeah, it's claimed to be one, isn't it? It's in the title. That's why it's fraud. It's not. It's purely synthetic. But we're calling it a test now. Oh, it's half a step into making people think it's science. We're testing things, are we? It was me
Well,
thinking
if
it
we
was
can-
measurements. Now it's a test. What's gives? Wasn't it measurements a minute ago? Am I missing something?
Now, if we can expand on that for a moment, even if we give him the observed phenomenon, what's his independent variable? I mean, he's not going to vary and manipulate ether to prove the cause of the effect.
Oh, height.
So it's
It's if synthetic effect. Sorry. If height, then synthetic effect. If you want to formulate it. They're varying the
Oh.
height.
there's still no ether in there.
No. That's completely non sequitur. Shout out to Unitox Femi for the super chat. He says, actually, let's just bring it up on screen. Sea level have different setup than curvature. He's referring to it's a different setup nonsense. Thank you very much for the super chat. Please share the show if you've not done so already. Also, I should really shout out the Hammer, as he's put the effort in to make this video. And he's on our side as much as he got the thick end of it. our disdain towards ether, and he is an etherite as far as we can ascertain. He said he was neutral. I don't think so. Either way, please check out the Hammers video. Oh no, is it the Hammer? The original disco? Oh, it's not. I think it is a Hammer, actually. It may be. Maybe it's just a channel name change. But in either event, I've put a link to the videographer that's put this publication up. Hopefully it is actually the original videographer. Asylum welcomes Witsit and Brian's logic is the title of the video. Please let him know at Nathan Oakley 1987. Just leave him a polite comment. Help him along in the YouTube algorithm.
The
Okay,
light
I'm gonna
gets to
clear
the
that up
receiver.
now. I'll clear that up now. What was said was that you can't go around making claims of things existing that you don't have evidence for. You can't be calling them science. That's what we said. We didn't say people can't talk about them, because people on your side of the fence, right, did go around claiming they were science. Bob, before he died, Bob was on a Netflix documentary. Hang on, Bob was on a Netflix documentary that was seen by millions of people, where he made claims concerning interferometry with a fog gyro that they're after measuring a drift. And he said he believed it was the ether. And he also said that there was science for ether. This is the problem. This is what we are. This is what we.
Bob died. Did you know that?
What?
Bob's dead.
I know that.
So why are you still talking
What
about
a
it?
lame.
He said on a
Yeah, that is so ridiculous. Like, he isn't talking about Bob's death. He's talking about a claim that Bob made. Like, what he's trying to do now is to get false outrage so he can get away from what was claimed in the past.
Glowbuster stream.
How does that change anything? Your legacy is your legacy. But Bob,
Why are you talking about someone that passed away?
Leave me finish my point.
He's not talking about someone who passed away. He's talking about the ether claims made in the past by someone who coincidentally is now dead. That's not him talking about a person who passed. He's not talking about Bob, fat old Bob. Right. He's not doing that. He's not talking about Bob. He's talking about the claims made by Bob about ether.
Right, as if we can't talk about the claims of people who died, and that's all you do.
Are Mickelson and Morley still alive?
No, that's what I was. Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Like, so why are you talking about Mickelson Morley with it?
That'd be my next move if I was Brian. Sorry, why are we talking about these dead guys? Why are we talking about these dead guys?
He's virtue signaling. He's just trying to, I don't know.
Yeah, John already identified that. Seeking false outrage to get away from the actual argument that Brian's making.
This is something that's been the problem we've had with it, is that claiming science for this type of thing, or claiming this thing was science in any way, even if you didn't, other people did on your side.
Did, past tense wrong. Still do. People parrot it in the name of Bob, and indeed Witsit. Renaming it MMX. What does X stand for? Is it experiment? Yeah, you're not going to hide it with an X.
Now, the point is that we have a problem with that, and we have a problem with people saying things exist without having evidence for them existing, right? Whatever is going on, there isn't a natural phenomenon for this stuff outside of interferometry. So our point is not that you can't, no one said anyone can't, never has that been said. You're not allowed, how could I tell someone what they can and can't talk about? Nobody can say that. So that never happened. But we did point out the problems with what was being said about it. Now, you spent enough time, right, learning about the scientific method, being on Discord with QE and the lads, and you knew, because you knew what scientific method was, you knew what science was, yet you didn't correct people on your own side. Now, you should have corrected people in the background on your own side. They said, put them aside, look, this is wrong, we can't do this.
Are you done?
Instead of going against us. Well, okay. I wouldn't be saying anything.
This is boring.
Are you done? Are you done?
What a wanker. So Brian's nicely, calmly detailed the issue at hand that was hand-waved because it was about a dead guy. And now it's boring. You're a prick, Witsit. Yeah? You'd have bloody nose if you were across the desk from me if you did that to me. In the middle of my statement, you said I'm boring. I'd break your nose. That's what I'd do. Oh, yeah, you bored now? You're bleeding now.
Don't focus on. Okay, you can say that. I want the people though to focus on the fact that Jaren and all of these people are trying to make us out to be these people who are raging against people, stopping them from having conversations and all of this. And in some of the episodes that we've had with Witsit, the one that was 10 days later from the initial one, that was the whole feeling of, oh, look at how these guys are beating on you, and we're just trying to have real conversations intellectually with intellectuals. We don't want to do this. But look at how you're talking to Brian. Similarly, remember how Jaren spoke to Nathan. Y'all are all the same, just disgusting at the pit of your soul.
Yeah, it's absolutely outrageous.
You're sitting here talking about people that aren't here.
I'm sorry, so Mickelson Morley are just behind you, are they, Witsit, you crackhead? Where are they? Are the ghosts of Mickelson and Morley going to appear? What a crap position to take. Just so we can waffle through Brian about how boring it is and how he's talking about people that aren't there. Now, that's shocking, isn't it, when you're talking about something that's actually got a namesake, Mickelson Morley. All right, well, they're dead guys. Let's never mention them again, Witsit. What are you doing talking about these dead guys?
Are you done with trying to make the claim that we are trying to tell you what you can and cannot talk about?
Well, you were very unsuccessful. You have 57 people watch you guys, but this is not really the point, though. Don't interrupt me. Immediately, I knew you were going to interrupt me. I knew
you've gone to an ad hom. Yeah? Brian's addressed that your suggestion is that Brian's going around telling people what they can and can't talk about. And he's pointed out, no, my actual argument is that you've got synthetic effects that claim to be science, and they're not. It's been an ongoing issue. You've never addressed it. We've pointed it out to you. You've not addressed it. What's the response? Is that super chat? Go on, whoever that was.
Oh, he's got 57 people watching you means that you're wrong. Witsit? Is that what your position is? So why did you leave the globe?
People in the chat buying it in the chat for this video. It's not on my screen. Guy called Moxie. Brian's boring nonsense. So people buy it. Witsit says it's boring. The arse-licking crowd that believe his double-speak contradictions agree with him. Let's just not addressed Brian's point. Brian has just summarised what's been laid at his door. You've said, I've claimed you can't talk about this. Wrong. I've said it's not science. Boring! That's what we get. What a freaking outrage.
you were going to interrupt.
Your basis is consensus then.
So you agree the only way that you can...
Yeah, Brian, that was a much better response than mine. Mine saying that the outrage would have led me to have my blood boil, which in the state of play I am at the moment on a load of painkillers, in a load of pain. That kind of irritating nonsense reply through the top of my rebuttal summarising the crap that's been laid at my door would have resulted in actual pain for Witsit. Today, probably not tomorrow. But you know what I'm driving at. Brian's response, far better.
Debate is to interrupt me.
No, you...
Now it's critiques about what the format is. No, you've laid at his door a specific claim, ignoring his original claim that's been put to you. He's corrected it.
I'm not leaving you off on anything.
You just monologued, though.
Your basis is consensus then.
So now Brian's summary of the misrepresentation of his position is called a monologue. Again, what a wanker. So a total hand wave of Brian's summary of your position that apparently is going around telling people that they can't talk about this stuff. Incorrect. Completely incorrect. No, it's appeal to format time. Brian's interrupting. Don't interrupt my interruption, says Unitox Femu. Thank you for the super chat. This guy's a scumbag. A complete scumbag. Totally disingenuous. He's not engaged in the debate. And why isn't he engaged with the debate that Brian's attempting but not succeeding in having with him? What we're having is a debate about the format and the attitudes and what Brian's allowing people to do incorrectly. And when that's addressed, it's boring. So Witsit is simply not engaged in this discussion. He spewed a load of nonsense and decided that he's not going to listen to anybody that's in authority about interferometry. That'll be Honeywell. So has he engaged in the discussion? No. Now he's appealing to the audience in terms of the interruption level and Brian's, what was it he called it, monologue. No, it wasn't. It was a summary of your baseless assertion and incorrect positioning of arguments that Brian hasn't made about people not being able to talk about things, as you said.
I didn't mention 57 people.
You started talking about globe busters, right? And I want to point this out.
So Brian's just pointed out an appeal to consensus, and now he's pointing out, I didn't mention the 57 people. That's a consensus appeal. Well, how many people are watching is how right I am. Absolutely correct. And what's the response? You brought up globe busters. Did Brian mention how many people were watching them at the time? No, he did not. This is non sequitur rebuttal. Non-responsive to what is put to you. Now, again, if you're a Witsit fan and you're listening to this, I'm pretty certain you've all buggered off now. Because the last time we started to stick the knife in regards to Witsit's nonsense and fraud, nobody left. There was nobody left to bugger off from his side of this discussion. You've already gone, haven't you? There's nobody here from Witsit's side to appeal to in my chat watching. Good. Yeah, you've all buggered off because you want this deception. This complete non-argument. The complete non-sequitur, non-rebuttal to anything being put to him. You want this.
Interrupt me every time I speak. You're a grown man, Brian. You're a grown man. Stop interrupting me.
We were telling you.
And there are people in the chat that are going to like act.
Now we're appealing to the consensus of the chat. So what? Because you've rumpused Brian's point, you can now reuse the fallacy. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and he's inciting a riot. So he stopped Brian's point, did his thing, and incited a riot because Brian is trying to point out that he actually did what he did. It's just so dirty, man.
Yeah, scummy, innit? Dirty. It makes you feel dirty.
Actually, like amp this up. Like somehow you're beating me in the debate.
You said that we
haven't engaged in the debate. You stopped him talking about Honeywell. You won't allow any example that's beyond the interferometry example in your Michelson-Morley fraud. You won't address that it's fraud. So why on earth would you assume that you're engaged in this debate? Brian hasn't had his question. He still hasn't had his first question answered by you. Nothing but tactics and obfuscation, doublespeak, complete contradictions, and now you're appealing to the consensus of the audience in an attempt to incite a riot. You've tried to demean his question in regards to the position on Ether based on the fact that one man who put a position that is absolutely held by your side is now dead, in spite of you continually appealing to Michelson and Morley and the ghosts thereof. I mean, what kind of crap is this? Does nobody recognise this?
Stop interrupting.
People what you couldn't put or talk about. That's a lie.
See, this is what you have to do. This is like how Oakley has to.
I'm putting people straight on that, and I'm trying to tell
Are
people.
you guys seeing this?
You don't want to hear it. You don't want people hearing the truth. That's what's wrong with you.
I let you finish what you were saying.
I know exactly what you were up to.
I let you finish. I let you finish what you were saying. You monologued.
You didn't. You tried to
look at him every time.
So now he's putting distance. This is what Globe believers used to do with us. So Brian's put a point in terms of his appeal to consensus. Now we're putting as much distance between the actual arguments that Brian's concisely managed to get across to him and the answer that will never now come. It's just this guff in between, putting a bit of distance between the questions and the answers that won't need to be put forth if there's enough there in between.
Time I speak, you're terrified.
What you were trying to say.
You're terrified.
Let's see after this constant barrage of, he's interrupting me, he's terrified. Listen, audience, listen to what Brian's doing. Is anybody getting... That's what we've got. Let's see if he addresses what the last point was. Brian put it to him that he's appealed to consensus. That's a fallacy. Let's see if he addresses it at the end of this waffle.
You tried to say that we're telling people...
Austin's interrupting more than Brian, to be fair.
There we go again. Brian just tried to summarise the misrepresentation of Brian's actual argument in terms of us telling people that you can't say things. He attempted to go through it. Witsit interrupted him. After a barrage of complaints about constantly being interrupted, the summary wasn't delivered. Why? Well, because Witsit interrupted it.
That's how I know Sleeping Warrior's a liar. You guys are like a cult.
Now he's attacking the chat. This is a complete shit show. Was it moderated by The Hammer? At what point do you say, excuse me, Witsit? He's put his point to you 3 times. We're getting further and further away from it. You're appealing to the audience. You're not dealing with Brian and his claims. You're calling him a liar. Now you're attacking the audience. How much more does he need to flail before the hammer steps in and stops this? Do we get any of the questions Brian's attempted to get answered, addressed? Oh, no, the moderator is perfectly neutral.
What?
You're telling people that we're telling you and other people that you can't talk about that. We've
Third time he's summarised it. Now we're back on track. Let's see if it gets addressed.
never said that. I was clearing up what was actually happening and what your responsibility was in it that you never stood up and dealt with. You never did it. It was your responsibility to do it. You knew better and you didn't do it.
Hey, am I going to be able to talk?
Lately you didn't do it.
Non-responsive, non-acknowledgement. So, you've misrepresented my argument, says Brian. We say it's not science. You say we're telling people they can't say things. Third time he summarised it. The last time he attempted to, he was interrupted by Witsit after him bleating about getting interrupted by Brian. It's tactics. That's all this is.
You're not going to stop interrupting me, are you?
That's non-responsive. He put it to you that you mischaracterised his argument about the non-science of the Michelson-Morley fraud, experiment, which it isn't, and how you'd characterise that as us telling people they can't say things. It's the third time it's been put to you, and your response is non-responsive.
I was gonna step in right there.
Good. Oh, it's Hammer. Oh, he's finally stepped in, the moderator.
Hang on 1 second, Hammer. I'm not going to stop.
He's not done. He wants to monologue for.
So the moderator stepped in at the point that Brian's actually got a summary of his question put to Witsit. It's almost like the moderator's white knighting because the question's finally been put in a concise form to Witsit. The non-sequitur response has come. Now the moderator stepped in. What the hell? He finally got to put the question to him. So when he was waffling on about and appealing to the audience and appealing to format, moderator doesn't step in. Brian finally delivers the question, third attempt to do so, and the moderator steps in now. What?
Yeah, never mind. Never mind.
Go on.
Never mind. I was going to say maybe he stepped in to make Witsit answer the question.
I will find out.
We'll see.
For 10 more minutes.
If you're going to be putting in bullshit, then I'm going to address it. So this whole 2 hours or whatever is going to be me addressing your bullshit. That's if you want that. Everybody's gone off.
He's literally walked away. Couldn't be any more rude. So he finally had the point put to him, and he walks off. Oh, I've got something to attend to. The kids suddenly need my attention. All right, so I haven't got your undivided attention while I address your shite for the third time after being accused of interrupting you. Finally gets it delivered without your interruption, and you walk off. It couldn't be any more rude. No, excuse me, I just need to deal with this. I just take on board that you've asked me about my bullshit misrepresentation and the position you don't take, but I've got to deal with my kids back in a second. No, just walks off.
He might as well stay gone off, because all he's doing is throwing in caveats and throwing in bullshit that isn't true. I'm trying to tell the audience what the truth of it is, and he doesn't want me telling the audience that. And all he can come back at me with is, you only have 57 live watchers. Like, who cares if there's only one live watcher?
Big shout out to those 50. I see 52 right now, but to be fair, we are broadcasting to other channels. And big shout out to all them that is broadcasting. I apologize, I don't have the exact list.
Apologise for not stopping Witsit from babbling on about nonsense for indefinitely. And a failure to address Brian's point, and then walking off.
I'm assuming MMN is broadcasting it. Big shout out to them. And everybody else, a big thank you and welcome. Yeah. You know.
Are you done interrupting?
I can only do. Yep.
Interrupting you as you weren't there and you walked off rudely without explaining why. No justification, just walks back and accuses of him interrupting, opening the door to an immediate poisoning the well fallacy. Yeah, dickhead, you just walked off without telling me why.
All right.
Are you done stopping the truth?
Well, you're the one that's not letting the other
Are
person
you done
speak.
stopping the truth? Simple question.
I don't stop the truth, brother.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
All right.
You tried to tell a lie a while back.
So-
You keep on trying to tell lies.
Where do we lose track?
Is that me, or is Witsit now talking through Brian? The thing he's just accused him of literally 30 seconds ago. He's literally in the middle of a sentence, Witsit, you prick.
Hang on,
We lose
moderator.
track.
He's
Mhm.
bringing this personal nonsense into
They
it.
haven't.
Is that Witsit interrupting again? It's like he's laughing on an open mic as Brian's in the middle of a statement. It's almost like you're doing the thing you've accused him of there, Witsit. Like a wanker, like a disingenuous wanker.
No control, dude.
He's not.
No control, like he's in the middle of the same sentence that you're interrupting to tell him he's got no control of. Is this how you win, Witsit? When you've got no claims to back? You've got your stupid shit ether claim that you can't back with anything. You've got to pretend that maths is science to do so. And accuse Brian of non-stop interruption while you tell him he's got no control in the middle of his sentence, eh? With your mic wide open, with your smug grin over your face as you interrupt him. What a prick.
Not staying on track because he knows when he wants to. When we actually go into what's actually happening in interferometry, that he won't really have a leg to stand on. He knows that.
That's probably why you have to interrupt me so much.
Is that where we left off?
So he didn't interrupt you. You just interrupted him 3 times, and I pointed out all of the occasions that he did so. And your response, totally non-responsive, is to accuse him of interrupting you after you just interrupted his sentence 3 times. Your response is to tell him he's just got nothing but interruptions. Okay, Witsit, do you think your little transparent game was going to slip us by? Do you think it slips Brian by? Now, what Brian's currently doing, and I know because we've had these discussions, is trying to ignore this. Trying to ignore the fact that you're just trying to get a rise out and piss him off. Get him irritated. Yeah? It's a game to you, Witsit. You're not here for truth. You're here to play little games. Because that's all this is. A little game that you're playing. Not providing evidence and proof for your ether shit. Playing little games with people who call you out on your nonsense and lies.
Is that where this got really...
Well, Brian, this is what. See, this is the thing. Hammer, just to understand, you gotta know what happens, right? So they're in this like room where they don't let anyone.
So now he's going to discuss Brian and what he does with the moderator. He's put it to you that we, if you want to categorise this, it's him in front of you, not we, but that's how you've categorised it, Witsit. Point out it's not science. He's now accused you of a failure to correct this within your own community. That's his new claim. Now, he's made the claim 3 times. He finally got it through to you once, and you walked off without any justifiable reason for doing so. Come back, interrupt, and much was your response when you got back. And that's all we've had. Now you're going to talk to the moderator about what we do. So you're going to completely ignore anything that Brian's put to you then, and have a little discussion about what your opponents do.
One speak. So when they leave the room, when they leave the room, they don't know how to act because they normally don't let the other person get their point out. So impulsively,
so he's put something to him. It's non-responsive, non-answer that doesn't address Brian's point. Obviously, Brian's going to object to that. So you could go, oh, well, Brian's interrupting. No, we've now got a description of how a group of people behave, rather than an address to the misrepresentation of the non-science fraud used to claim as proof as ether, with question proofs.
You were on the show this week, 2 different days. You were given loads of chance to talk.
Instinctively, they have to shut the other person down. Right?
Completely non-responsive. So Brian's literally addressing his non sequitur now. No, you've had plenty of opportunity to talk. We're forensically going over some of the opportunities you've been given over the years, Witsit, currently. Yeah, this would be one of them. But your response, even that, is addressed to the fact that you get plenty of opportunity, is to repeat the same thing. My God. This is sad. Again, if you follow this numpty, you're a victim. That's all you are.
Right? And that's what Globers do.
Rubbish. You need lies and caveats.
They're asking me to remind them to be amicable and intellectual.
What, the chat's reminding you to do your bleeding job as a moderator?
That's what they're asking me to.
Yeah, well, maybe do that then,
you.
Hammer.
Yeah, I mean, the disagreement somewhere was happening with the interferometry. I'm gonna.
Yeah, I mean, let's forget that he didn't say the word correctly. Yeah, the disagreement was on interferometry being a scientifically validatable cause and effect reasoning empirical method that's used to validate ether, and it's been misrepresented by Witsit as being something we go around telling people they can't talk about. Yeah, that was kind of a good summary by me, and kind of just a misinterpretation of how you pronounce the word interferometry from Hammer, to the point where the chat is finding it glaringly obvious that you're doing a poor job. Was that Hammer when you were here last time? You were perfectly neutral and moderate and did a good job. I'm going to go with no.
Totally
I would say that the
mispronounced that
hammer
pronoun-
is more at this point. The hammer is being more of what is that when you don't take care of something that it's your responsibility to do? There's a word for it. I'm just completely
Lax.
blanked on it.
Lax, incompetent, complacent.
Procrastinator.
That means you faff
No,
around.
no. I like the hammer, first of all. Let me just go ahead and say that. But
The
he
hammer
has
is a
been
saint.
extremely
I just
lacking
want
in
to
his duties.
remark he's a saint.
Say again, no thanks. Sorry, John.
The man is a saint. That's
I
all.
like Hammer, right? Personally, the guy's lovely, right? He's a genuinely good person. This has absolutely nothing to do with how good a person Hammer is.
No, and that's what I'm saying. This has to do with the hammer has responsibility as the moderator to keep it in moderation. And he has failed at that. Now, if he goes on to just keep allowing that after people have pointed it out, I don't know what to say to him.
I apologize. So, I mean, Witsit was saying something like there's a difference between the
Okay, one
ring
second,
gyro and
moderator. Hammer.
Yes, sir.
One moment.
He's even interrupting the moderator. You have no
I have
self-control.
to. Well, I don't look. I have to do this. Well, you're putting me in this position. You know that you're bringing it to what it is now. You brought.
On the one hand, I could criticise Brian for that, but he's doing a shit job. Now, he's not taking charge of it. Brian's trying to regain control of this discussion and get his questions answered. So if the moderator's not helping him, he's just hindering him. Now, on the other hand, you could say he is still the moderator. So it's 6 to 1 and half a dozen the other. For Brian, that is.
Brought it here. I didn't bring it here. Moderator, what's going on here is instead of talking about the thing he's supposed to be talking about, he's throwing in little caveats, personal things.
Notice how when Brian appeals to the moderator, he's discussing the topic at hand and how it's not getting addressed, as opposed to going, those tossers over on Globebusters, they're all frauds and charlatans and they tell people they can't say things. Notice how Brian's not doing that. He's bringing it back on topic where the moderator failed to. So now he's disciplining. Kudos, Brian. Thank you for doing this. Where it was 6 to 1 and half a dozen the other. No, Brian's absolutely justified. Now he's educating the bleeding moderator. Now we're trying to have a discussion about this. I've managed to get it on track. You're now interjecting in a garbage manner that doesn't help me and trying to tell me what Witsit's saying. The words out of the moderator's mouth were, I think what Witsit's saying about interferometry. No, he's doing everything in his power to avoid that, moderator. And now you're white knighting for him about what he's saying. He's not. That's what Brian's trying to get him back on track with the original question he's now had 4 times.
And things to do with FED that aren't true, trying to win over the audience dishonestly, and I'm not putting up with it. So if he stops doing that stupid nonsense,
well, we can't control what the audience does or does not.
You're supposed to tell Witsit to stop when he does it. When Brian says, you're claiming we say people can't say things when we say Michelson-Morley isn't science. Response from Witsit. Those guys over there are telling people they can't say things. No, that's exactly what I'm criticising you for, because we don't do that. Our actual argument is it's not science. Can you hear him interrupting me? Is the response from Witsit. At some point, you don't step in as the moderator and tell Brian, I think what Witsit's trying to answer you with, but doing everything in his power not to, is the following. Just makes you a white knight. You're not a moderator. This is what you were accused of when you were here, and I had no reference to describe whether or not Brian was right and justified in saying you were a biased moderator and on the side of Witsit. It's blatantly obvious. You just stepped in to try and attempt to answer the question that Brian spent the last 15 minutes trying to squeeze an answer out of him and got nothing but obfuscation. But the moderator thinks he's got to talk on his behalf. When he's put on the spot, he starts describing how a group of people behave again. The very objection that he's not overcoming. Just reasserts it. Now that's going to make Brian's blood boil, isn't it? The response to him criticising him for misrepresenting the argument as a group of people telling everyone else what they can't do is to start describing what those guys over on FED do. It's a total outrage. Witsit knows what he's doing here. He's just trying to get his opponent's blood to boil. Well, Brian, while you keep your cool, I'll let my blood boil on your behalf, so the audience understand just how cool you're having to be. Brian is freaking cool, isn't he?
I
It's
think
not the
I
audience.
try to.
The audience is not the problem. The problem is not the audience. So you're not
Can't
addressing
even
the
let the
problem.
moderator talk. You have a
Moderator,
literal
you're not
problem.
addressing the problem.
Is it just me, or is Witsit now interrupting the discussion between the moderator and Brian? Like, interrupting the very thing he's just accused him of about 2.5 minutes ago? Is it just me, Witsit, or are you projecting your inadequacies and failings straight onto Brian as you commit the same crime you accuse him of? Is it just me? This, why I miss the arena debates 24/7 FE Discord. I'm going to put an is in and assume that the 2 books didn't get you enough words. This is why I miss the arena debates 24/7 FE Discord. I don't really know what that is, Theo, but thank you for the super chat. Did I ever go to that? Somebody tell me. This is the problem with asking my moderators to move me around. Like, put me on a stretcher, take me to the room that you want me in, and put me in there. I assume maybe I've been in the arena. I don't know, but thank you for the super chat.
The problem is that Witsit keeps on bringing in nonsense. And I gave you the opportunity earlier on. I'll give you 20. What time is it now? It's 11:48 for me. So I'll give you till 10 past the next hour to come up with evidence of what you're talking about. That's 20 minutes. I'll wait 20 minutes. You support your claims concerning FED. Get audio, video, or written word. Let's see it. Come on.
I think it's crazy. Like, if there are people that like watch this and they're like, "Yeah, Brian, get him."
Okay, let's summarise it. Brian's done an excellent job anyway, but I'm going to summarise it in spite of Brian doing a really good job anyway. So Brian said, I've heard it multiple times through the top of the actual argument. We say people can't say things. Okay, now it's demanding a substantiation for the red herring. Okay, if you're not going to have an argument with me about how it's not science, you say we have told people they can't say stuff. Now prove that, as you've used it as your rebuttal through the top of me 20 times instead of the argument. Go, show us. That's what Brian's done. He's called his bluff.
It's just how you know it's a
No,
cult.
it's you support your claims, Austin. That's what it is.
All right, can I talk now?
Can you support your claims?
Sure, if you stop interrupting me.
I'm not in charge of you.
You can't do it. You can't do it.
The same non sequitur, non-rebuttal, non-backing of his claim response that we got all through the last 10 minutes then. He's interrupting me, he can't do it. What? He's asked you to support the crap that you interrupted with him segue away from his actual argument about it not being science, interferometry, that is. And you can't even substantiate the thing you've rumpused him with to get away from that. You won't even back that. It's back to Brian's interrupting me.
Yeah,
Do you want to specify maybe? Why don't you?
Adding caveats.
You're talking about the personal claims, though, Brian, right? You're talking about the personal claims. I think the reason you're getting.
So now the moderator is deciding that it would be an opportune moment to step in to get Brian's red herring address on the table, because that's very important. No, he did it in a way that demonstrated that Witsit was an absolute shitbag and wasn't going to substantiate any of the crap he just spewed. If you let me talk, no, that's not going to be you substantiating the crap that you just spewed about Brian and the group of people he hangs around with. That didn't substantiate it. So Brian's now made that point, Hammer. What you think we should hang around on this non sequitur that Witsit had used in defence of the argument when Brian's adequately taken that apart by saying prove it, and he hasn't. What, we should hang around here all day? No, we'll wait all day because the moderator now wants to chase the red herring that has just been dealt with by Brian. Wow.
A little emotional because you're taking it personally, like you feel like he's personally attacking.
The moderator's accusing Brian of taking it personally. The personal attack that was put to him multiple times in lieu of the argument they were trying to have, that's Brian taking it personally. Sorry, who is it that was saying that that Hammer's a really good guy? No. From what I've just seen, that's not the case. That was very unfair. He had personal attack upon personal attack in lieu of the argument, and then he's just accused Brian of taking it personally. What, the personal attacks that came in lieu of the argument he was trying to have? That's not very fair by the Hammer.
At this point, I think the Hammer is way out of his depth, and he is just saying the wrong thing because he wants to appear like he's in the middle. Well, what do you do in this situation if you've accepted all the nonsense that Witsit said? You know?
But he's a total dick. Brian hasn't got a clue what he's talking about. I mean, if Brian actually listened to some of the shows he takes part in, he'd actually have a clue and be able to deal with Witsit. I'll tell him when he gets here.
That's like an hour. I'm not emotional.
That's me.
Oh, sorry, Brian, I didn't see you there.
You pull that same thing every time on. It's almost every 1 out of 3 times that I join.
At least unpredictable. It's good to have you. You're doing an outstanding job, Brian. And to be honest, what I'm adding is completely surplus. You're so concise and cool-headed in this back and forth with Witsit that every time I try and summarise it, I'm like, Brian's just said it in the 4 words he managed to even get through to the audience. Between the interruptions, it was still made clear what was going on by you. So I'm kind of a fifth wheel here, really. I could just play this video. You're doing an outstanding job without me adding anything.
Thanks. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Are we
but I
covering...
accept that.
It's you and Witsit on Hammer.
Oh, right. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, we're just basically outraged for you, Brian. That's all. That's what this show's been so far.
Exactly. Well, that's why I congratulated you for being so level-headed. So at one point, right, he accuses you of being rude in the middle of a statement that you're making about an objection to him making it about a personal attack on FED for us telling people that they shouldn't be saying certain things. You address it and say, no, we point out it's not science, point out it's not got phenomena, and you've misrepresented my argument. In the middle of you summarising that for the 3rd time in this particular example, 3rd time you've said it to him and he's not addressed it, he calls you rude in the middle of you saying it. Now, I said at that point you get a broken nose if you were sat opposite me, because I want the audience to understand the disdain for the behaviour on your behalf, because you can't express that in the moment. You're just trying to remain level-headed. Well, you generally are anyway, but in this instance, you're remaining incredibly level-headed and not responding to any of it. So I want the audience, that's the only time I've not been a fifth wheel, in fact, when I can say, your blood would be boiling.
Yeah, well, that's what he wanted.
Yeah, exactly. I can do it on your behalf, because then he doesn't get what he wants or needed in the moment from you, and you didn't give him in the moment. But after the fact, I can say, this is designed to outrage you. This is the outrage I would be experiencing, because while he smugly smiles at you and interrupts the 3rd attempt to bring the conversation back onto his losing argument for ether, you're being told you're boring.
Yeah, well, I remember that my tactic going into that was I was just going to address all his nonsense personal stuff that he was going to bring up instead of addressing the arguments themselves. Now, I could have done it a different way now in hindsight, but either way, I did what I did. Because I knew there was no way at the time. I knew that he was just going to keep on bringing up stuff about how bold you were or how bad to him QE was, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted him to support that. That's what I wanted. Because he was just, that was his red herring away from actually dealing with the arguments. He never wanted to talk about airplanes and what ringlets or gyros do on airplanes and stuff like that. Stuff like that. So I knew that, okay, then, if you're saying Nathan said this, then support it. And he didn't support anything throughout that. Now, I did get angry eventually a little bit, more with the moderator, but he didn't support anything. Anything he said that you said or QE said was more all a misrepresentation, and he didn't support any of it. That's what I remember from that.
It's not like we're going to...
I can say it.
Yeah, John.
If I had been the moderator in that, and I had performed as the Hammer did, Brian, I could understand you being angry with me.
Yeah, it was a little bit like the situation you had with Ruhif and McTown. It was a little bit like that, except for what's the best way to say it? Except for maybe not as obvious. Well, maybe more obvious. I don't know, but it was similar where the moderator was not a moderator. That's the best way to say it.
Yeah, I didn't know if I could back you up last time when Hammer was here, because I don't think I'd seen this. I certainly can't remember it anyway. But now I've seen it, I'm like, he's stepping in at a point just before you came to this show today where you've made it clear that Witsit's baseless assertion about us declaring that people can't say things is baseless because you've asked him to evidence it and he hasn't. Then the moderator steps in and says, "Oh, right, do you want to keep him here on this stuff about people?" You're like, what are you doing? Why are you stepping in here? You know, you've dealt with it.
Yeah. Well, he's not stepping in when it was important. Like the topics that were stated at the start of that debate, the topics were all personal issues that Witsit has with you or QE. That were not the topic. Witsit kept on bringing them up. What?
Oh, we've got some good ones from it. Like, you can't talk about Bob because he's passed away. Well, he can't talk about Mickelson Morley anymore because they passed away.
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
yeah, that was stupid. Talk about his dead guys. Sorry, Brian, go ahead. I'll just shout out Theo Megawetti as I've got my line open. Shout out to Theo Megawetti. He says, the arena is greater than the asylum. Okay, well, that's good to know. Thank you for the super chat. Go ahead, Brian.
No, just whatever Bob said, he said, and that's it. I mean, and if it's relevant at the time, then it's relevant at the time. You know, that's what he said. I'm not. If I was saying something he didn't say, that would be a disrespect to him. But if I'm saying something he did say, you know, it is what it is. How long does someone need to be dead before you can quote what they said? You know, under those circumstances, you wouldn't be allowed to critique anyone, you know, who's after passing away, or use anything they said.
Yeah, I mean, there's
anyone.
Yeah. There's a certain point of not being heavily critical of the things that they stood for, regardless of their passing. So for let's say it's a month, I have no idea, but there was a certain period of time when we were like, other than saying it's very sad that this person, from a personal point of view, has died, rest in peace, Bob Nodell. Then, out of respect, you don't talk about them and criticise what they did, regardless of how mean or badly taken it has been, for a month or so. Because then, you know, it's a bit soon, isn't it, to be speaking ill of the dead? Well, I wouldn't say that when we take apart Mickelson Morley now, or ever, we're speaking ill of the bleeding dead. It's just us talking about what they did when they did it. It wouldn't matter if they were alive now or dead now. And it's the same for Bob Nodell. It wouldn't matter if he was alive today when we describe how ether is being represented as science, and here's an example of it being represented as science by Bob. Oh, he's dead? All bets are off. Don't matter. What's that? He defrauded millions from the banks? Write it all off. He's dead now. No responsibility can be ascribed in anybody's directions. The businesses that he held that defrauded people, irrelevant. Write the lot off. No, it's part of history. It's just what he said. It's still perpetuated to this day. He was the most prevalent person to have said it. That's why lots of people still say it. It doesn't matter if he's dead or alive.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, in the end of the day, Bob said what he said while he lived, and his legacy, all the good things he said and all the bad things he said are his legacy that he leaves behind in this arena. Now, personally, outside of that, I can't speak about that because I didn't know him in that way. But, you know, everything he said or did in this arena, that's his legacy in this arena. And, you know, and because this arena is an arena about geometry and physics comes into it, natural law, then anything that Bob said concerning those topics, if they were correct or incorrect, you know what I mean? He said them. And if he's passed up, even if he would say different now, it doesn't matter because he said what he said when he was alive.
Right. With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out today's member-only video once it's uploaded after today's after show is concluded. If you are indeed a member, be aware that there's quite some strong language in it. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on an after show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.